Alright, hello. The purpose of this demo is to show you how to read transaction data and load it into a database through CloverETL. We are going to detect new arrival of transactions, read each input file, filter and remove unwanted records, transport data into a consistent format, and load the data into a database. So here is CloverETL, and so we are going to start by going to File, New, CloverETL Project, and I'm going to name this April 9 because that's when I am recording this video. So now we can see here, our project has opened up in Clover, and we can see all of the components that we're going to be using throughout the project. So we are going to go here to New and CloverETL Graph, and we will name this Demo 321, hit Finish, and now we have all of our components, our readers, our writers, and things we can add into our graph so we can manipulate our data. So the first thing we're going to do here with the data is go to Data In, Import, and then you're going to import the data that you're looking to use. Mine's in CSV that I've already loaded onto my desktop, so I'm going to load that up. Directory. There we go. And so I can see here I have transactions 1, and that's what I'm going to want to use. So now you can see here under data in that I have loaded in my transactions 1, and we can open it up into here into Excel. And now here in Excel, we can see that there's transactions ID, number, transaction type, amount, and time. But this data is not really doing anything for us. It's not in a database, so we're going to take care of that. So close that out. And now we're back into Clover here. So in a graph is the best way to fill in all of your data, and it's shown here in a friendly user interface, so a lot better than writing any code here within Clover, so we can use this. So in the middle, this is where we're going to build our graph. In the bottom left is our outline panel, which shows the elements in our graph. And on the right, these are all the components, which is going to help us build our graph. So first, let's go into the readers section. And we are going to pull up the universal data reader. The universal data reader is one of the most common components to use because it allows you to use many different file types, whether it's a CSV, a flat file, live streaming, many different things. So we're going to drag that here into our editor, and we're going to double click it so we can set the priorities, and we are going to select it, go to our file URL, find our data and transactions, and hit OK, and then apply, OK, and you can now see that it is loaded here into our universal data. So now we want to describe the data that we're going to use. That way it can be consistent across all files and make sure that it is accurate and works well. So we're going to go right click and extract metadata. And so the nice thing about CloverETL is it's very good at guessing the data and what you want to do with it. So we can see here we have all this stuff. Doesn't really mean a lot, kind of in a weird format. So we can hit next here, and it's going to guess that we have transaction ID, account number, all that, and then up here we can see that I guessed that it's a string, this is a decimal, this is a date, and so on, and it did a pretty good job. But we are going to change a little bit of the data here. So the first thing that we're going to do is just change the account number to a string, because that will come in handy a little bit later. We'll get to that in a little bit. And then we are also going to change the date data, because as you can see here, it's guessing that we only have month, day, year, but down here we have month, day, year, hours, minutes, and seconds. So what we'll do is we'll select our time. And then over here on the right in our field, we're going to go down to advanced, our format. You can see that's just year, month, date. And we're going to scroll up so that includes hours, minutes, and seconds. And that's all set. So we're going to hit finish. And so now our metadata is all defined. And we have a reader set up in Clover, which will read all of our data, and a metadata, which describes the data that we are going to read. So next, we're going to make sure that our metadata is correct. So we're going to read and then write our data. So we're going to write the data to a component called trash. So we can grab trash from this column, this side over here, drag it and drop it into our graph here. So the trash component will accept data records, but it does nothing with it, so it's just going to help us clean things up a little bit. So we're going to connect the output port of our reader right here, which is this little red line, and connect it to our output and trash. Select our metadata, and then our metadata here, transactions1.csv. And now that we have done that, we can go up here and hit this button up here, which will save and run it, and will tell us if we were successful. So just give it a second, and now we can see that by 2 green check marks on either side that it was a successful run, and then we can see here that 1,000 records were detected and written into the trash component. And you can also see down here if there was any issues with it with our run. So let's run it again. We can see this is where it's going to tell us if there are any errors in our running. And if it's successful, it's going to be green like this, and if it's unsuccessful, it's going to be red. So next, we're going to filter the input data so we can only keep certain records. In this case, we want credit or debit records, and everything else we're going to get rid of. Just give me 1 moment. Apologies, I closed my window. Getting a little loud outside. Okay, so again, we're going to filter the data that we only want and keep only certain records. So it's going to be credit or debit records, and everything else we're going to get rid of. So to do this, we're going to use a filter component, which can be found in the transformations side over here. And we're going to grab filter and drag it here into our graph. And we are going to move the trash can over here, and we can take this filter component and drop it right here in the middle. And we can see that it is now connected to both our data reader and our trash. The dashed edges mean that Clover auto-propagated the data on this edge, and the solid line assumes that the metadata will remain consistent across multiple components. So keep that in mind. So now the filter component is in line between the reader and the writer, and we're going to use the filter to filter certain data. So first, let's click on the universal data reader, and we're going to hit inspect data. And over here in this column, we can see that we have our transaction types, so credit, debit, and then we're going to get the occasional A for audit, and we want to get rid of those. So we're going to double click our filter. And in property editor here, we're going to hit filter expression, open it up, and this allows us to see everything we want here. And what we want to do is filter transaction type. So we're going to double click that. And then we can see here, there's some SQL statement that's going to run based however we want to do it. And so we want our transaction type to not equal. So we'll hit the unequal sign. And then we're going to enter the string A. And now we can see down here, our expression is valid. So we'll also change the name of our filter here. So we're going to OK. Change the name of our filter, and let's just do remove audits. We can hit apply, and OK. And then we'll run our graph. Again, we will wait. And again, we can see that is finished and OK. So we are good to go. All right, so next we want to write our filtered data here into a spreadsheet. So we are going to take the spreadsheet data writer from the writer tab. We can bring it down here into our graph. And then we are going to take our output from our remove audit record and disconnect it from trash here and grab it and connect it to our spreadsheet data writer. And now that we filtered our data, we don't need this trash can anymore, so we can actually just delete it. And we'll move our spreadsheet data writer here back in line to keep things nice and neat. So now let's open the spreadsheet data writer property editor. and we are going to hit file URL, and we're going to choose here where we want to save our data here to. So you can save it in many places. If you didn't see that, I'm going to save it to my data out here, and I'm just going to name it, well, again, just do April 9.xlsx, so it saves as a CSV. And hit OK, apply, OK, and we'll run the graph, and it should run. Wait, finished, OK, so that's great. We can go over here into our navigator here for our project, and see that data out has now successfully run and is loaded into our Excel spreadsheet. We can open this up here. And it'll take just a minute. Apologize, don't have the newest computer, so it does take some time sometimes. But as you can see, there are no more A's, so it successfully did do its job, which is exactly what we want. All right. So now that we have done that, we are going to write our graph here to a relational database instead of an Excel file. And I'm going to use Microsoft SQL Server, which I've already pulled up here, and have opened up my my database here amongst the what do we use? The Walton College database. So I've already created a new table within my SQL database called transactions 10, and we are going to try and write it to it here. So I provided a script here in the walkthrough, and it looks something like this. So we are going to copy this. We're going to hit tables, new table, and then new query. Paste our SQL statement in here and change it to transactions 10, and then I'm going to execute it. And we can see query successfully executed. We can go to our tables here, refresh it, and we can see transactions 10 is now successfully in there. So that's great. So we're going to go back here into Clover now that we have created our transactions 10 table. And we're going to start by selecting a DB output component and placing that into our graph. So DB output table. Great. Then we're going to connect it from remove audit record and delete the spreadsheet because we no longer need that, since we are no longer writing to a spreadsheet. And we can move it up in line here. Great. And so now we are going to provide our connection details for SQL to Clover. So we're going to double click our output table here, hit DB connection, create new connection, and then you can see here all of your different database connections. You can use AWS Redshift, MySQL, Oracle, Postgres, or really whatever you want to use. So like I said, we're going to use SQL. So we're going to open up SQL, and you can see all this information here, but we are not using any of this. What we want is going to be pulled up here. I provided this also in the walkthrough. Well, first what we're going to do is I'm going to put in my username and my password here on my database. Got that. And then we're going to go back up here to the URL and make sure our connection string is correctly. So I deleted everything back up until the 2 forward slashes. I got rid of the hosting and stuff. And we're going to change it to nsenterprise.waltoncollege.uark.edu. And then slash, then your database. And we hit validate connection. Oh, and up here we can see connection valid. So great. So we'll hit finish. And then the next thing we want to do is select our database table that we're going to write our data to. And we're going to go here, and you can see I have some other tables already done while doing some other demos here. and we'll select transactions 10. Now we can hit apply, okay, and we can hit save and run. And as we see this come and run through here, unfortunately, we do get an error. So we're going to fix that. What happened here? What's the problem? And the problem is here that the conversion type from date time to decimal is not allowed. So again, our data here and our data reader to our output table was not consistent. So we're going to have to go ahead and change that real quick. So if we look, so again, just to remember that our field names, their order and data types were different from our input and output database file, kind of stated before. Just wanted to reiterate that in a little bit more clear. So we're going to go to our DB output table here. We are going to extract our metadata. And then we are going to open up our transactions 10 and hit generate query. And it generated us a query down here. Hit next. First off, what I want to do is make it rename this transactions 10 underscore MS SQL so we can refer back to that later and know exactly what we're looking for. And refresh. Great, so now we can see that our metadata table here has two different definitions, transactions 1, transaction 10, so the original CSV, and now our MySQL database table. So now we are going to go to our transformer components here, and we want to grab our filter again. I'm sorry, we want to grab reformat. So we're going to reformat our data, and we're going to drop it right here in between remove audits and DB output table. And now we can see everything is loaded there. So data coming into reformat will be represented by the input metadata, so transaction 1, and we want to make sure that the stuff coming out of reformat is defined by our metadata from our MySQL database. So we're going to go down here to our transactions 10 metadata, click it, and we're going to drag it here onto this dotted line. And you can see that it's successful because it is clicked here along our solid line, which is great. So let's just tighten this up a little bit, make it look good. Always good to keep things neat. Great, so now we will open up our reformat property editor. We'll go to transform, open up transform, and this is where we're going to make sure that all of our data is consistent from transactions 1 into transactions 10. So for things that are fine, we can actually just click here and drag it over to our transactions 10 MySQL database, and we'll go here and do our transformations normally like it should because everything is already all matched up. So we can start with transactions ID, drag it here. You can see that it's matched. Then we do transaction type, same match here, and then amount, and then time. And so that leaves us with account ID. You can see that one is a string and one is an integer. And we want to keep it actually in string form. So we're going to go down here, and you can filter different SQL statements that will change the way that this goes. And what we want to do is search str to long, which is a long string. And we're going to take this SQL statement right here, pick it up, and drop it as a new transformation. And now that we have that, we can grab account ID and just drop it right here on there. Drop that on there. My apologies, I did that wrong, so let's do that again here. Again, we're going to take transactions ID on top of transaction ID. That did not work either. Transaction ID, it's very finicky here. Got to make sure you drop it on the exact right thing. And then transaction type onto transaction type. Amount onto amount. And time onto time. Take our str too long. Select it, drop it there, and then we want to drag our account number and drop it onto there. And then we're going to clean up the syntax a little bit right here. And then we're going to take our output here, and that will complete the mapping. So everything looks good here. So okay. We're going to rename our component here to DB format. Make sure everything's consistent. Apply, okay. And now we can hit save and run. Hit okay. And now it's going to try and write our information to our database. So bear with me here for a minute. This is going to take a couple of minutes because it is connecting back to our SQL database all the way in Arkansas. So you can see it's still running. It'll flash real quick. All right, and now it's finished. And we can go back here into our MySQL database. Let's hit refresh. We can open up our database here, transactions 10. And now we can see that there is actually data in here, which is great. And that is everything. So thank you for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about CloverETL and how to write data from CSV into your Microsoft SQL Server. And again, thanks for tuning in.